Did you know that 32% of PhD students are at risk of having a common mental disorder? I didn't know that either until I started this research. So, my project was basically an analysis of information flow on the Texas Tech website about campus mental health resources and graduate students' awareness of these resources. But before we go further, I wanted to show you this picture of the different puzzle pieces because I feel that it's very relevant to how my project turned out. I went into this from the perspective of a student trying to find information, and it really is like trying to put puzzle pieces together. So there were a few different goals of my project. First, to understand how this information flow worked, which I discovered it was really confusing, and then to learn how we can improve the information flow. So my two research questions, the first one was, how is information about on-campus mental health resources disseminated from the TTU Student Counseling Center? I chose the Counseling Center because I knew of that resource, so that's why I started there. And then my second research question was, are Texas Tech graduate students aware of these resources? So, for previous research, graduate students are experiencing mental distress at higher levels than before. And then around 1/4 of graduate students were actually unaware of the resources available to them. Students also do not feel safe confiding in faculty for support, which I thought was really important. And also, training programs, both for faculty and students, have mixed results. Some of them have been successful, and some of them have not been successful. So these are kind of the key points from my literature review that will be relevant later. So for my methods, I conducted a content analysis of the Texas Tech University website, and I also looked at corresponding social media pages for these resources. And then I interviewed an employee at the Student Counseling Center and 3 Texas Tech graduate students. So, what was really interesting about this was on the Student Health Services page, here you can see there's supposed to be a link for mental health care, and when you click on that, nothing happens. So that's why I ended up redirecting to the Student Counseling Center. But here is basically just a flow chart of how this information leads a student through the website. So the red boxes here are basically, there's very little information about mental health resources. And then blue is there's a medium level of information, and green is there's an extremely detailed level of information. So I started out as Student Health Services and then had to redirect to the Student Counseling Center and ended up redirecting to the Family Therapy Clinic, which we'll see in a minute. And then later on, I discovered that you could access the RISE website from Student Health Services, but I didn't know that because I wasn't specifically looking for the link to redirect there. And then down here at the bottom, we have just other resources available for mental health that I either already knew about or some of my interviewees told me about. So the Student Counseling Center, as you can see here, this is their homepage. It includes the phone number for the crisis helpline, which is very important because some students can't wait very long to gain access to these resources. And then they also have different links to different places on campus. So their website was fairly detailed, included things like their contact information, hours of operation, things like that. But they added an update in October which says that there's up to a 1-month waiting period after a student's intake appointment for them to actually see a counselor. So then students get redirected to the Family Therapy Clinic. So we started out at Student Health Services, really couldn't find any information there, and then moved to the Student Counseling Center. And then after that, we get redirected to the Family Therapy Clinic. So the Family Therapy Clinic is fairly detailed on their webpage. Here they have a paragraph about how they offer different types of counseling, ranging from individual to couples to families. The Psychology Clinic is also pretty good about detailing their website. Here you can see home, services, assessment and testing, faculty supervisors, links, and information. So the assessment and testing page is pretty detailed about here are the exact types of tests that we offer, here's what we do not offer, let us know how we can help. And then for counselors specializing in diversity, this is actually a newer resource that I kind of discovered by accident. Their webpage is pretty detailed as well. Here they have the phone number for the Family Therapy Clinic, because this is like a partnership between two different entities on campus. And then underneath is the different counselors' pictures as well as their contact information. And then RISE, which actually stands for Risk Intervention and Safety Education, their webpage is fairly detailed, but they focus more on going to classes and doing presentations. And so an instructor can request that they come and talk to their students. So here is what I was explaining earlier on the Student Health Services page. Right down here under Quick Links is where the RISE information is. But if you didn't know what RISE was, or if you didn't know what that acronym stands for, you wouldn't think to look there. Never Give Up is another new resource specifically geared toward graduate students. One of my interviewees actually told me about this. I didn't know it was a thing. So this is their website homepage. There's really not much information here other than hours and location. But my interviewee sent me this picture of this flyer, which has a lot more detail about how they can help if you're struggling with your major, or if you have a problem with your advisor, different issues like that. So I thought it was really interesting how the flyer was more detailed than the website. So for social media, it was really interesting to see the differences. Student Health Services actually has a Facebook page with a decent number of likes and followers. And then the Student Counseling Center also has a Facebook page, but there's not much engagement there. The Family Therapy Clinic has no Facebook page, and then the Psychology Clinic actually has an unofficial page that someone just in the community made, and the link to the TTU website is actually broken. So Counselors Specializing in Diversity has no Facebook page. This may be because they're a newer resource, I don't know. And then RISE also has a small level of engagement. And then for Never Give Up, they have no Facebook page. Again, this may be because it's a newer resource, I don't know. And then Twitter was actually really interesting. I'm not a Twitter expert by any means, but I got a Twitter account just for this project, and I couldn't find information on any of these resources on Twitter, which I thought was kind of interesting because this may be a way for them to get the word out about their services that they're just not using. So I wanted to briefly talk through some of my interview takeaways. First of all, the graduate students that I interviewed said that they use a variety of coping mechanisms to deal with stress. For example, some of them mentioned exercise, yoga, spending time with their families, listening to music. There's a number of different resources that they use just on their own to help cope. And then graduate students also look to their mentors to be a good example of a healthy work-life balance. So I thought that was pretty important because, we spend a lot of time with our mentors one-on-one. So we tend to look to them for, how do you balance all of these things at one time. And then graduate students, some of them are comfortable discussing their physical health with their mentors, but not their mental health. And so that relates back to the previous literature that we talked about on how some students don't feel comfortable confiding in their mentors about their mental health problems. 2 out of the 3 students said that they would use the campus resources if they needed help with a mental health problem. So I thought that was pretty good. The majority said that they would utilize those resources. One of them has actually used one of the on-campus resources before. And then another student said that she would basically just try to fix the problem herself with some of her personal coping strategies. This was partly due to the way her family handles things, and partly due to a lack of mental health literacy. And then the students actually mentioned looking for information on campus mental health resources in a variety of different places on campus. The sub, the wellness center, the counseling center, different places like that. There was also very little awareness of training programs both on and off campus, so I thought that was pretty important. The student counseling center employee told me that she knows they use different methods to advertise their services, including the TTU website, Facebook, campus events, and word of mouth. They actually have more people referred to them by someone else than any other method. And then they also provide a variety of different training programs on suicide prevention, eating disorders, and different things like that. So, some key takeaways here. Healthy student-mentor relationships and increased awareness of mental illness are key, because when students feel comfortable disclosing, they're more likely to actually seek help. And then the flow of information is highly confusing from a student perspective, and many of the on-campus resources do not have a corresponding social media presence. So, my recommendations, first of all, use some kind of information packet at orientation and different events to get the word out about these resources, and then use some of these gatekeeping training programs. I know they have mixed results, but we have to use the tools that are available to us right now. And then also increase social media presence, because students are obviously on social media and it could be an underutilized resource. So here's an example, just briefly, of a possible flyer that could be passed out. Here I just listed the different names with, do you need mental health help? Services are available. And on the back, you're not alone, and some statistics about not campus mental health resources, I'm sorry, just about mental illness in general in college students. And then underneath is where I listed the different names of the different services with a brief explanation of the types of therapy they offer or counseling they offer with their phone numbers. And then underneath, I wanted to make sure I included the crisis helpline phone number. So this is just an example of a possibility for the information packet. So in conclusion, I believe that this information packet or a flyer like this would help get the word out about these resources until things like social media and training programs can be updated. So thank you for listening to my presentation today. I really enjoyed this project and I learned a lot, and I look forward to seeing how this leads me to future research ideas.